Welcome to the Flex Rental Solutions Best Practices series. In this lesson, we're going to learn about corporate identities and how you can best manage and control multiple corporate identities in your system. On the System Settings menu, click Corporate Identities to view all of the corporate identities in your system. As you can see, we have a main corporate identity, which is considered the parent entity called Flex Rental Solutions. Then I also have Flex Video Solutions and Flex DJ Solutions as separate companies that you can see originate from the same location. So essentially this is three different companies that are sharing the same equipment from a single location. And really the way that this works is that you can choose which corporate identity you're using on a quote or on an invoice so that the information for that particular corporate identity will show up on the invoice. So if you're billing somebody for equipment from Flex DJ Solutions, then you can have that name show up and a separate logo, if you have one, show up on the quote or the invoice. If you click New Corporate Identity, you'll see a message pop up that says that a single corporate identity is included in your Flex subscription. But if you want more than one, contact sales at flexrentalsolutions.com and they can give you more information about pricing for multiple corporate identities. So let's look at some of the settings in a corporate identity. We've already mentioned that each one can have its own logo. Each corporate identity can also have its own terms and conditions, because each company might have a little bit different of terms and conditions. You can also include identification information for that company, the website, and if you have multiple locations, you can actually designate a different headquarters for the corporate identity. In this example, all three of my corporate identities are originating from my Salt Lake City warehouse. You can also change the base currency if you have multiple currencies, and a default numbering scheme. We typically recommend just leaving this at none and changing the numbering schemes on your project elements or your resource types to control your numbering schemes. And those things are covered in another lesson. And then finally, you can change the way that your logo and your company address appears on PDF documents that you send to your clients. So in this example, the address will appear to the right of the logo, and the address is pulled from the headquarters location, and it is going to print the company name, because I don't really have the full company name here in the logo, so I would probably want the full company name to be printed before the address. And I also have the logo scale to fit turned on. This is just if your logo is too big or small on your PDF documents, then you can choose yes and change the width and height in pixels. So of course, if you make any changes on your corporate identities, then just click Update and those changes will be saved. Let's really quickly look at how we can change the logo and the address settings and how that might be different for each of your corporate identities. So we clicked over to Flex DJ Solutions, and I quickly created a new logo for this particular company. This one has a little DJ outline and it says Flex DJ Solutions in the logo. And so this time the company name is actually in the logo. So this might be a situation where I say don't print the company name because it might be redundant to see it once with the address and then again in the logo. And then let's say this time that I don't even want the address to print, I only want it to be the logo. So let's click Update and let's see how this works as we create a new quote. If I go to the New menu and click New Quote, let's first start by creating a quote in Flex Rental Solutions. And so now when I click Generate PDF, or let's actually just do the default financial document to start. Since this was my regular Flex Rental Solutions corporate identity, then you can see it took that logo, the company name was printed, and the address. But now let's just quickly change the corporate identity to Flex DJ Solutions. And if I print that same report, then you can see that it's using the Flex DJ Solutions logo, and I told it not to print the address. Of course, I can go back and say to print address to the left or to the right of the logo or underneath, but right now it's only printing the logo because those were the settings that I gave it. So one thing you might have noticed that when I went and clicked New Quote, it's automatically defaulting to Flex DJ Solutions. That's because me currently being logged in, it's taking the information from my contact entry. And remember, you can link your contact entry to a username on the Terms and Notes tab by typing in the username. And I have set my corporate identity default to Flex DJ Solutions. And you can do that for each user in your system. So if I open up this user, I could just say that she defaults to Flex Rental Solutions. I could do that for each employee that has their username linked on the Terms and Notes tab. And one other setting that we want to look at is in Projects, Project Elements, and Quote. And we're going to look at the Contact Associations tab. And now that we have enabled the corporate identity as a field that will pop up when you create a new quote, it gives us a default corporate identity for the entire quote element. So right now, if somebody creates a quote, but they don't have a default corporate identity set up with their username and contact entry, then it will default to Flex Rental Solutions. But the default corporate identity that's set up in their contact record, this will always take precedence. So that's why when I create a quote right now, that's why it defaults to Flex DJ Solutions, which is what my default corporate identity is. As long as we're here on this Contact Associations tab, let's look at the settings here. So when you get multiple corporate identities in your system, usually when we're setting that up for you, we will also set this up. We'll enable the corporate identity field. You can see that it is set to inherited yes. So if you're creating a child element, it will inherit the corporate identity of the parent. Override enabled is yes, which means you can change it even if it's defaulting to this default or the user default, you can still override. And then user default yes is what was making the new quote default to my default corporate identity. Let's also look at, as long as we're in project elements for the quote, let's look at how we can list the corporate identities for each quote in the system so that you can quickly look at a screen and know exactly what corporate identity each quote is using. So if we go to the Search Options tab, and remember the Search Options tab is the settings that will appear in projects and quotes. So this list that pops up and all of these columns that you see are these different caption and expression options that we see on the Search Options tab. So what we'll do is add a corporate identity column. So let's the caption will be corporate identity. Identity. And then we're going to give it an expression. In this case, it's going to be element dot corporate identity with a capital I, and then dot company name with a capital N. It has to be copied exactly like this with the same capitalization or it won't work. And you'll see that it turns green when it knows that you have a good expression. So we'll click the plus, and then we can actually move this. If you grab the far left side of the row, we can move it to wherever we want. So let's move it to right before Account Manager. And so now let me close that quotes list and then reopen it so that it will pick up those changes we just made. Now you can see that we have a corporate identity column where it's showing the corporate identities that these quotes have been assigned to. And you can come up here and use the filter and say I only want to see my DJ, Flex DJ Solutions, or my Flex Video. So it's really easy to organize and go through and find exactly which quotes are assigned to which corporate identity. And then of course you can export or print this page to have a paper or a PDF copy. And along these lines you can also add a column to your calendar that shows the corporate identity. So go to whichever calendar you want to add it to. I'm just going to add it to my default calendar here. Click Edit. And we're going to do the same exact thing. And the expression will be the same. Oops. It turned green, so we know it's good. I'll click plus. And now this will be a column in my calendar. I'll click Save. And there it is. So again, just two really easy ways to be able to view all of your quotes and which corporate identity they're assigned to. And now the last thing that I want to look at is still on the project elements for the quote. And again, that was Projects, Project Elements, then double-click Quote. And let's go to the Reports tab. Remember how you could upload separate terms and conditions for each of your corporate identities. And if you want to use the default print format report, and this was covered in another lesson where you can build what I like to call a stack of reports that will print whenever you hit Generate PDF. If you have default terms and conditions in there, then it will print the terms and conditions that are coming from the corporate identity that the quote is assigned to. So if we go back to this quote, and remember right now we are currently, let's actually start with Flex Rental Solutions. And remember, this stack of reports that I built on the Reports tab, this is what will print whenever I click Generate PDF, and this is what will send to the client whenever you hit Send to Client. So first it will print the financial document and then the terms and conditions. So I'll hit Generate PDF. And you can see that it prints the financial document first, but of course there's nothing on it because I never added anything. And then it prints the terms and conditions. And I differentiated these just by saying, putting the company name at the very front of the terms and conditions. So let's go back to the quote and now change it to Flex DJ Solutions. And when I click Generate PDF, it will print that same stack of reports, but this time it's pulling the terms and conditions from the terms and conditions that I loaded to Flex DJ Solutions corporate identity. And you can see it's pulling that logo too, just like it was before. Another thing that we can do with reports is assign a certain report to only print when you're using a certain corporate identity. So as an example, I added a static report to my system that's kind of some DJ promotional material. And it's just a PDF that I created in an outside program and then uploaded it to my system. And then you can utilize static reports here in the default print format report, or I could even enable it on the quote so I could print it directly from the quote. But for now, in this example, I just want to add it to the default print format report, but this time I'm going to assign it to the Flex DJ Solutions corporate identity. And I'll click Update. And what this means is that this report is only going to print if the quote is assigned to the Flex DJ Solutions corporate identity. So let's go back to our test quote. We'll click Generate PDF. And again, it's printing our financial document, our terms and conditions, and then just a simple DJ promo package PDF that I uploaded to the system. But if we go back to the quote and change it to Flex Rental or Flex Video Solutions, and then we'll click Generate PDF. This time, since we're not using Flex DJ Solutions, it does not print that last report. And so realistically, you could set up in your Reports tab, you could have a video promo static report and then just a regular promo static report, and you could add all of these to this list and assign them to their respective corporate identities so that they'll only print when you're using that corporate identity. So these are some of the things that you can do to manage multiple corporate identities in your system so that you can easily see which quotes are using which corporate identities and how you can manage which reports are printing based on which corporate identity that you're using. And remember to upload the separate terms and conditions for each corporate identity so that those terms and conditions will print when you print the terms and conditions report. If you have any questions about using corporate identities, and especially multiple corporate identities, then please email support@flexrentalsolutions.com.